Yeah, Arjun, you can start. Ajay.
Hello?
Uh, a big hello to you, Mr. Jerry Castello. Thank you for accepting our invite to grace this interview.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So let me give you a brief introduction of who and what we are. So
Okay.
we're a company called Essentially Sports that's being run by a group of sports enthusiasts. So we try to deliver content from a fan's perspective. We cover all the major sports that are happening in the world at the moment, and we appreciate you taking the time and talking to us. Thank you so much.
No, absolutely. Thanks again. It's a great opportunity for me to continue to spread our message. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Let me start off by asking you how have you been doing with the pandemic still looming large in the entire world?
Well, it's interesting. You know, we make a product that's a transdermal vitamin patch. And one of the things that came out from the medical community is that thiamine, or vitamin B1, which is the main ingredient in our patch, is a boost to the immune system and a help in the fight against COVID. So believe it or not, in these unique times, we've been able to actually grow as a company by providing our product to the public and help them, maintain good health.
Yes, we saw your products at B1, and we came across your website. There were performance boosters and products which help athletes as well.
Right.
Your companies were the main sponsors for the Big Five Invitational, which just concluded. So may I ask you what was the main drive for you that pushed you to organize such a massive tournament during a pandemic?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. Our company has a couple of hundred athletes, as you mentioned, the performance boosting, and a lot of those athletes are basketball players who have signed contracts overseas. They do a lot of lectures and speaking, and they generate their revenue in this manner. And all of that was shut down with the pandemic. So being that, a lot of our guys had no opportunity to make money, and there was this void at the time we were going to do it, we decided let's put a tournament together in Vegas. As fate would have it, right as we decided to put our tournament together, here came the WNBA, here come the NBA. So we kind of caught a little bit of a bad break there because we thought when we were putting this together, we would be the only basketball in town globally. So it kind of hurt us with our viewership numbers. But the tournament itself was a tremendous success, and very proud of what we were able to pull off in the desert for sure.
So even before the NBA began, the five invitational tournament began and concluded in a grand manner. So it was held in Las Vegas. Do you live in Las Vegas, sir?
My company was started in New York City, where I'm born and raised. We have an office in Vegas, and during this time, I've been living in Vegas as well because our New York office has been temporarily closed because of how crazy things went in New York for a little while. I've been very fortunate to, travel between New York and Vegas, which is my company's two main headquarters.
So, was it the significant reason behind holding the tournament in Vegas? Like, because of things were, bit okay there compared to New York?
Well, at the time we were doing things in Vegas, the virus was quite low out here. It still actually is quite low. Everything is a comparison. When they were saying that Las Vegas or Nevada has become a hotspot, there's a little bit of kind of misleading facts on that. In other words, if Vegas had 500 cases and then the next day they had, 800 cases, they're saying, oh, Vegas went up 60%. So if you look at the 60% number, that's alarming. That's alarming. But 800 cases compared to 10,000 in New York, 10,000 in Arizona, 10,000 in Florida, obviously it was still relatively low. So that was the main reason. And then, of course, we felt that the bed space, the availability to have a hotel, house all the personnel and put on a 2-week tournament. Again, everything shut down in New York, other cities. I mean, even major sports communities like the NHL, they were struggling to find a city that wasn't struggling so much. So Vegas just made the most sense. You had the weather, you have the economics out here. My company was out here already, and we were fortunate to partner up with Boyd Gaming and get it done out here.
It is actually great that you managed to pull off such a grand tournament in Vegas during the pandemic. So did you face any major challenges, along the way?
Well, the biggest challenge, obviously, is you're going to be dealing with grown men, and there's only so much you can say. Like even the NBA and even some of the bigger billion-dollar agencies are struggling to keep guys all contained. You see, even one of the more famous things happened with Lou Williams with the strip club and things like that. So it's the biggest challenge was having the men become disciplined enough to say, hey, listen, we're all in this together. If you want to go outside this bubble, there's not going to be any 5 tournament police, chasing you down. We got better things to do with our time. But, if you would really just understand that you're not just jeopardizing yourself, you're jeopardizing the tournament and the players next to you. So once I think the guys adopted to the fact that we're all in this together, I was very, very relieved to see that, we were able to maintain, for the most part, a true quarantine situation. And we didn't lose a single player to COVID. I mean, you look at Major League Baseball, they've canceled almost 30 games already. Again, you're talking about all these big multi-layered, multifaceted leagues that are struggling to stay away from having COVID affect their operations. We ran a tournament for 2 weeks, 8 different games, and didn't have COVID interfere at all. So very, very, very unique situation, and very excited to be sharing this story with the rest of the world,
Not registering a single, COVID case talks about the great organizing that went behind this tournament. So kudos to you on that. So, if you look at the roster of the 6 teams that participated, you saw a lot of talent. You could see a lot of ex-NBA players, slam dunk champions like Nate Robinson, a part of the team. You talked about, players being disciplined inside the bubble which you were organizing. Like, how hard was it to you for you to, manage to get everyone on board? Like, did you succeed at the first attempt, or were they skeptical about playing the tournament at the first place?
No, we lost a few guys. We originally had Eddie Curry that we thought was going to be a part of it, and he didn't show up. Joe Johnson, one of the more famous people that a lot of fans were excited to see be in the tournament. As a matter of fact, Joe Johnson had committed to us, and what happened is he was in the bubble situation at the TBT, and when he committed to us, we were not forced to be in a bubble, so he thought he was going to be able to come and go as he pleased. Once the Nevada Sports Commission said for us to do this, we had to recreate a bubble as well, that it was going to be 20 straight days with him away from his family, kids, not talking to anybody, and he had to back out. So we did lose some guys, but then we gained some guys too. We gained Amir Johnson, who was on a Philadelphia 76ers roster just a few months ago. Alan Anderson, who was a star at Michigan State and played with the Toronto Raptors. So, we were able to bring some guys on board. And then Mo Charlo, who won the TBT championship, wearing our patches, nonetheless, he came on board and took Joe's spot with the Texas team. So very, very fortunate to get the talent that we did, without a doubt.
So the tournament began by the mid of July, and the finals took place on the 29th. Did you have this original schedule before the pandemic struck, or was it, a change in dates for you guys to organize this, in July?
We had it pretty much organized out. It was 6 teams, as you said, so it made sense to have a 5-game regular season. This way, every team was going to play everybody once, and you were able to have a natural tiebreaker head-to-head. So it pretty much came together just based on the fact that there were 6 teams, and then the mathematics just worked out. Everybody plays each other once, a semifinal and a championship.
Yeah, I love the round robin format. It just made everything easier, everything organized. And we saw a lot of competition between the teams. six teams which participated, all the athletes, they still have the game in them. They still love the game. That's what they love to do. We saw old rivalries like the Bulls versus the Knicks, happening
Mhm.
inside the tournament. Uh, who,
Absolutely.
so if I were to ask you, who would you pick as your MVP of the Big Five's inaugural edition?
Yeah. So, and not to correct you, but the big three was a different league. We're the five. There's no
Yeah,
big in our, so we're not the big five. We're just the five tournament.
pardon me.
So yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the guy who won the MVP of the championship, Dante Green, was probably one of the more consistent players. He averaged 27 points throughout the entire tournament, and he wound up scoring about 30 points in the championship, and he won the MVP. And I would say that's the right one. But there are a couple of guys who really had standout tournaments. I mean, Mario Chalmers is someone who I think wants to be back in the league.
He dropped
He
51
had he had a
on a night.
he had a 50-point night one night, and it wasn't just 50 points. I mean, he had 15 3-pointers. So, when you have someone who can knock down 15 3-pointers, I don't care where it is. That's still showing a lot of talent, and I'm sure a lot of guys would love to have his 3-point shooting in the playoffs. So there are guys who are in this event who I believe you will see back in the NBA. Guys like Mario Chalmers, guys like Amir Johnson. There are guys who definitely utilize this as a showcase to show general managers that they still have it.
You're right. When I looked at the stats, I definitely felt that they can return to the NBA and prove their talents again. They were just spectacular to watch.
Yeah, and it's happened even with the big three. Joe Johnson, he was able to jump back into the league. Amari Stoudemire, he jumped back into the league. So there are tournaments like this that exist that give players who, you got to remember, Mario Chalmers, Amir Johnson, they're only 33 years old. There's plenty of guys in the NBA right now, 36, 37, 38. So, by 30, Jermaine Taylor is another one. He's only 33. So there's a lot of these guys who absolutely have desires to go back into the league. And if they get the right break in a tournament like this, can showcase that they still have something to offer, the opportunities will be there for them.
So there are 6 teams, and then there are 5 players in a roster, if I'm not wrong.
Right.
So did you name the tournament based on the fact that there's 5 players in a team, or was it just
exactly
straightforward? Right. Yeah. Okay. You just
No,
made
that's
it
exactly right. So in other words, one of the things you can't do is we couldn't call it the Knicks, we couldn't call it the Bulls because we did not have licensing from the NBA. Although the NBA actually, certain people within the NBA actually were very helpful to us. But with that said, so we just made it the Toronto 5, the New York 5, the Chicago 5, and it just made it for a very easy, understanding that this was 5 guys who at one point in time were signed to the Bulls. This is 5 guys at one point in time were signed to the Knicks. So that when it was the Toronto 5 or the New York 5 against the Chicago 5, it really was the Knicks against the Bulls. Because they all had been signed to those franchises. And that's where the 5 came from, that there's 5 men per roster, and that's where the 5 tournament unique name came from.
I really liked the jerseys that every team, was sporting. Did you have a specific theme in mind while designing them, or they looked pretty vintage to me? I like them.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We got a lot of compliments about the uniforms. What we really tried to do, if you look at the uniforms, we tried to go into each city and pull out something from the city. So if you saw the Miami uniform, you saw the palm trees. If you saw the Chicago uniform, you had obviously the comedy. That's why we had the north side, the south side. Instead of the mob guys, we had it looked like mob guys, but they had a basketball instead of a gun. Of course, the Knicks had the Statue of Liberty. So what we did is we just took each highlight of the city. Toronto, we took the skyline. And then, of course, because they're the defending champions, we actually put the NBA trophy on the Toronto jerseys as well. So we were really complimented a lot on the uniforms, and the guys liked them, and that's the most important thing. I didn't want the guys to feel like they were over the top or too much, but they really liked them, and they showed well on TV too. The good colors. They were nice colors. So I was I was happy the way it looked to the public. Yeah.
Yeah, everything was great about the tournament, the jerseys, the way it was played. So the Sacramento Five won the inaugural tournament. So from your view, did you see them winning the tournament like before it even began? Like, who was the strongest? Who had the strongest roster in your opinion?
Yeah, so I actually thought Sacramento was the favorite with Texas if Joe Johnson was there. When Joe Johnson didn't show up, I thought Texas was still a good team, but Sacramento was clearly the favorite, and they were able to, hold on. Toronto made a great run. They were playing probably the best basketball heading into the tournament, had won 4 in a row. Heading into the finals, and it was a great finals. With a minute and a half left, you had a 1-possession game. I think that's all any sport, whether it's baseball or football, late in the game, you want it to be within 1 score, 1 run if a baseball game, 1 touchdown if it's a football game. And, with basketball, it's the same thing. If it's a 2 or 3 point game with under a minute left and the end result is hanging in the balance, that's all you want as a fan. And we were able to deliver that. We had a lot of games where it came down to the wire, and it made for an exciting tournament for sure. But I think the best team won. I think Sacramento was the best team.
Yeah, Sacramento came up big in the last quarter to to win it by 7 points.
Yeah.
So that was a
Well,
great
Mike
ending.
Bibby, another thing too, Sacramento, you talk about one of the all-time great Sacramento players is Mike Bibby. He stepped into a time machine. He hit 7 of 8. He hit 7 of 8 3-pointers. I don't know what. He said it was the patch, which is good publicity for me. He even said he'll never play. He said he'll never play another game without the patch. But that's what the patch does. It helps you, shoot a little bit better. It helps you with your energy. It helps you with your focus, hand-eye coordination. All these things that Mike did in the finals is what the patch. We claim that it does. But I was really, really excited to see Mike play so well because he is such a Sacramento legend, and to know that he made such a definitive contribution to that championship, I think is very, is very rewarding for him.
Yeah, that would have been definitely delightful news for you because your product, proving to give, great results and
Right.
you as an organizer getting, an amazing final matchup. So nothing can go wrong with that. So was every player given the patch? Were all of them using it?
Yeah, so not all of them, but we have a policy in our company. We never force anybody to wear the patch because it is something that's skin contact, and I just don't think it's a good policy to mandate somebody has to put something in their body. But what we did is we explained to everybody what the product is. A lot of the guys had been using the product for years anyway, so that made it easy. But I would say 90% of the players were regularly using the patches, and again, that's pretty much all we could ask for is that guys gave it a shot, and whoever used it thought well of it, and that's where we've been as a company now. We have a lot of football players right now about to start in the NFL, and a lot of those guys wearing the patches right now.
Before the tournament started, you would have had some level of expectation as to how much it would reach to the audience. So did you see the viewership exceeding your level, or like how did it turn out to be?
Well, again, part of the problem is that we really thought we were going to be able to do this in early July. And if we were able to pull it off as our original target date, we probably would have been the only game in town and could have had a much more dominant viewership. Once things kind of got stretched into the middle of July, and by this time, the WNBA announced they're coming back. The NBA announced not only were they coming back, but they were going to have preseason games and scrimmages, and then baseball said they were coming back. So all of a sudden, we went from thinking we were going to be the only sports available in America, other than maybe golf, on a weekend. Everybody came back. So the viewership really got hurt quite a bit from that, so it did not meet expectations. What did meet expectations was the production, the performance, and the brand itself. So on the one level, we've now established a stake in the ground with this 5 tournament. A lot of people are asking for more. There are other cities that want to be a part of it. So now we can have maybe the Lakers and the Celtics. You get Boston and LA, obviously. We have a lot of guys from Cleveland. Dante Jones, who was in this tournament, did win a championship with the Cavaliers with LeBron James. So we have a bunch of guys. So we can have a Cavaliers team. We can have a Lakers team. Patrick O'Brien played with the Celtics. Nate Robinson played with the Celtics. So we can form other teams. So we're excited about what the future holds, even though this particular version didn't crush it in the viewership. Moving forward, I think as the pandemic, ceases and we get more and more fans on board, I think we can expand our viewership and make it worthwhile in the long run.
That was going to be my next question. If we can expect a second edition, a more grander edition of the 5, returning. So you answered that for me. Thank you so much.
I think the rivalries. I think that's the reason for having it again. You pointed out Miami and New York and the Bulls in New York, but of course, some of the greatest rivalries of all is the Lakers and the Celtics, the Sixers and the Philly. Obviously, Amir Johnson played with Philly, so that's what we're going to try and do. Just continue to highlight these great rivalries in basketball.
Yeah, we definitely love to see that. Besides, the men taking out on the court, we saw a battle of the sexes, a team of ex-NBA stars versus a team comprising current and former WNBA stars. So they played out a great game in which eventually the men ended up winning. But how exciting was it for you to organize it?
Yeah, that was very exciting. I mean, first of all, the game was only a 7-point game. Mario Chalmers hit a 3-pointer with no time left, just threw up a crazy shot to make the final score 10, but it was only 7. And some of the women that we had been able to get on board in the middle of the WNBA season still going on. I mean, you had Tiffany Hayes, 2-time national champion from Connecticut. Vicky Baugh won a national championship with Tennessee. Imani McGee is JaVale McGee's younger sister. Kayla Davis is the daughter of NBA great Antonio Davis. The list kind of goes on and on. Danielle Adams won a national championship with Texas A&M. Jordan Hooper, 2-time Gatorade Player of the Year. So we really, really were excited to get so much talent on the women's side.
The lineups were stacked.
Yeah, it was great. So it's something that I think because it was so close, a rematch is in order. I'd like to see if we can do it when the WNBA season is not going on, so that some of the women who are currently in the WNBA can participate. Maybe somebody like an Asia Wilson, like Candace Parker, somebody like that. But we'll see. But that's also something that may have a part 2 to it as well. Yeah.
So the tournament took place in Vegas in a closed bubble, of course. How challenging was it to organize it without any fans? Because clearly due to the pandemic, we can't hold an event with fans in attendance. So how different was it how was the experience of having it without fans?
Well, disappointing. I mean, for a couple of reasons. Number one, financially, obviously, you're not selling tickets. And that's a revenue stream that anyone who's putting on any event counts on, and that's number one. So that was a little bit disappointing, because when we first started organizing the event, it wasn't a given that there wasn't going to be fans. There was still discussions about having fans when we first started organizing it. So we actually were told by the Nevada Sports Commission very late that we were not allowed to have fans. So, and definitely the right decision. I don't think that they did something wrong, but I'm just saying, you go into an event and you're writing down your revenue streams, because not only are you going to get fans who are going to pay a ticket, but think about the merchandise. We spoke about the uniforms. Some of these uniforms could have been sold, at the venue to the fans, obviously some signed basketballs and some other things. All of that got removed from this event as well. As far as the logistics of it, it didn't really affect the play. I think the players themselves thought that they were going to need the fans, and then I think once competition started, I think that's really all that took over. All they saw was another competitor in front of them. and they just kind of shut out the fact that there were no fans. But without a doubt, one of the things that we spoke about earlier was how many great games we had that went down to the wire. That's where you miss the fans. Because if you had fans for those games where it was a one-possession game, you get the oohs, you get the ahs, and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the things that was unfortunately missing. But hopefully, because we're going to, hopefully do this again, like we spoke about, there'll be fans in the future. But, it was disappointing to do this one without the fans. Yeah.
Hopefully everything gets back to normal real soon.
Exactly. Normal. What is normal?
Yeah. So this is the new normal. The NBA is going in full swing now. The seeding games are like happening very smoothly. Even in the NBA bubble, there haven't been any positive cases, which is a huge achievement for the league itself. So I have to ask you, who are you rooting for this season?
Well, I got to tell you, I think, I hate to jump on the bandwagon, but everyone is saying the Clippers are deep, and I think that's the truth. I played Division I basketball myself. I coached in college, so I feel, pretty well-versed in the game of basketball. And I just think, especially in a bubble situation where guys, did have to come off the couch and you see, is there fatigue setting in? I just think when you look at how deep the Clippers are, they could just run so many guys at you. I think in the situation where the playoffs are going to continue on, I think they're the team to beat. I mean, the Lakers obviously may have the two best players in LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but if one of those guys doesn't play well, just look at how they've played the last couple of games. I mean, the Lakers right now, after clinching the top spot, I think they've lost 3 of the last 4. So, they're a team that everybody has to play well for them to win. That's not the case with the Clippers. The Clippers have so many different people. You have Lou Williams, you have Paul George, you have Kawhi Leonard, then you got Beverly, you got defenders. I think the Clippers, if they maintain their health, I think they're the team to beat for sure. Yeah.
The Western Conference is certainly the most fiery one at the moment. The battle for the last spot is certainly heating up as we speak. Everyone is actually rooting for the Blazers to enter as the 8th seed so that they can challenge the Lakers in the first round.
Well, I think the Blazers is just an exciting team. I mean, I think people want to see McCollum and Anthony, and of course Dame Lillard is, playoff Dame Lillard is a special thing to watch. So, as a basketball fan, I understand why you want the Blazers in there. It's an exciting matchup with some very potent offensive teams, and I think that's what people want to see. They want to see these offensive weapons go head-to-head with the Lakers. Yeah, why not?
You think they can pull off an upset in the first round?
I got to tell you, when you have guys who can score like Carmelo and Dame Lillard and C.J. McCollum, all it takes is to get hot at the right time, right? So, I mean, can they do it? Those guys absolutely have the talent to do it, and that's what we're talking about. Is that in a 7-game series, the Lakers have to have those two guys play good all the time, and right now also you got to remember that Nursif has come back, for Portland as well. So they're getting all their people back. It's not just, it's not just Melo playing good ball right now. So I think without a doubt, if the Blazers get in, they're going to be a very tough out. I agree with that they are ripe for an upset. Yes.
Who do you think will enter the finals from the East?
Well, I mean, I just think that there's a problem with Milwaukee. I don't know why. They just seem like, they should be the best team. And then when I watch the Celtics play in playoff basketball, the Celtics remind me a little bit of the Clippers, where they're just very deep again. So I think that's who will be in the finals on the Eastern side, Milwaukee and Boston. I think the cachet pick is Milwaukee, but I think Boston will be the team that comes out of the East. I don't know why. Something about Milwaukee. I don't trust them. I don't trust them.
You didn't bring up the Raptors. Are you not too interested in them?
Well, very impressed. I have to say, you know what? Very impressed with how they've played the entire year after losing Kawhi Leonard. They are obviously a team to be reckoned with. I mean, they've established themselves as not a fluke. I mean, they're here, but I just think that all things considered, the Celtics again, plus the Celtics get Kemba Walker back. I think if the Celtics have all of their pieces in a 7-game series, I think they're a little bit better equipped to move on. But that's the good news about this playoffs, is that really you can make a case for 2 or 3 teams out of the West, and you can make a case for 2 or 3 teams out of the East. So as a sports league, that's all you want is parity, where you can't just definitively say it's going to be. I mean, for so many years, it's like it's the Warriors. You just write them in. You just could write them in before the season started. They're going to be in the finals. But now, I mean, it really is wide open, and that makes for an exciting television. Yeah. But no, Toronto is definitely worthy. I just think Boston will be the one who will come through.
Gotcha. So, Mr. Castello, I just have a couple of more questions to ask you, which will obviously seek your opinion, because I'm a guy who likes to go around asking people their opinions, because I obviously love to ask, get to know how people feel about the NBA if our opinions match. So the league announced the finalists for the MVP award. So obviously Giannis, LeBron, and James Harden this year. So who should win it in your opinion this year?
Well, I got to tell you, it's easy to pick Giannis because he just does so much. But I'll tell you, based on the way where the Lakers have, they weren't that good last year, and now LeBron James at such an age, and he does so much for that team. I mean, to me, that's what an MVP is. If you took somebody off of it, what would happen? I mean, the Lakers are just nothing without LeBron James. He does the the rebounding, the passing. He holds them together emotionally. He's only missed a couple of games all year long. He's been there. So I mean, Giannis, is defending MVP. He certainly is a worthy candidate again. But for all the things considered, and the Lakers have the best record in the West right now, number 1 seed, I'd give it to LeBron. And that's nothing too. LeBron, he's got so many of these. A lot of people overlook him also. But you got to give it where it's right. And right now, I think without LeBron James, there is no Lakers in first place. So you got to give it to LeBron, I think.
Do you think people are overlooking James Harden when it comes to this discussion, because he's obviously, his scoring records are off the charts? I mean, no one has scored more 30-point games since 2012 than James Harden. The second on the list is LeBron James, who's like 100 games behind him. So do you think the beard is being overlooked when it comes to the MVP debate?
Well, here's the thing. So if you're talking about who is the most valuable offensive player, I think hands down is James Harden. I mean, he steps on the court and he's instantly 30 points. But I think when you're talking about an MVP, there's a lot of other pieces that go into it. What is the defense? What is the rebounds? How about the assists? How about the leadership? James Harden is an exceptional offensive talent, but the league throughout the history has had exceptional offensive talents. Guys who've averaged. Look at George Gervin. I know I'm dating myself going back a while, but George Gervin was someone who could score 30 points. Allen Iverson is someone who could score 30 points. But, to be an MVP, I think you have to wear a lot of hats. I think you got to wear the defensive hat. I think you have to wear the leadership hat. And I still am not sold on the way the Rockets play to move forward. I think they're an offensive powerhouse. I think they could score against anybody, but how many finals have they been to? And in some of those finals, James Harden shrunk, quite frankly. He's the guy who didn't even come through. So I don't think he's being overlooked. I think if you split it up into offense and defense, I think James Harden gets all the credit in the world for being such an incredible offensive force. And he is an offensive force. Better than Giannis, better than LeBron, better than Kawhi, strictly as an offensive player. But if you're going to have an MVP, I think I don't think he ticks all the boxes for me anyway. So I think that's why he gets left out of the conversation.
Got it. Let's just fast forward a few years down the line, maybe 3 to 4 years. you'll obviously have Giannis in his prime. He's just 25 years old. He'll obviously be in his prime. And then you have Luka Doncic, who's performing absolutely
Incredible.
tremendously. He's just 21 years old. I
Incredible.
really can't believe it. Do you see a massive rivalry emerging between Giannis and Luka in the future?
Well, I think definitely it's the star. Those are the stars of the future. I mean, what Luka Doncic is doing is nothing short of incredible. He's Larry Bird, and he's 3 years younger. You know, Larry Bird went to 4 years of college. You know, this guy came into the league, as a teen. It's just incredible what Luka's doing. And he's so efficient, too. It's not just a guy who jacks up 35 shots. I mean, he moves the ball. He's got 15 assists. You want to talk about a future MVP. There's a future MVP guy. He just does so much. But the league is in good shape. It's not only him, too. I mean, John Morant's another young star.
So many talents.
Yeah, I don't know what Zion Williams' health is going to be, and I hope he's not one of these Greg Oden types or these kind of players that, never realized their potential because they were always battling injuries. And there's been a few of those guys through the years who, just never reached their NBA potential because they always had a nagging injury. And I hope that's not going to be Zion's case. But even when he's been on the court, look what he's been able to do. He's been nothing short of amazing. So the future of the NBA, I think, looks really good. And without a doubt, Luka Doncic and Giannis and Kempo are going to be guys that I think the league is going to be the faces of the league moving forward, I think, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. I just have one last question. Please don't hate me for it.
No.
Are you team LeBron or team MJ?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I grew up in the era of Michael Jordan. It's everything about what he did, played to win, took the big shots. You see this Last Dance documentary where he was pushing guys. I think LeBron has a lot of that, but I think at the end of the day, there are just certain things that MJ has already done that I don't even think LeBron has done yet. Not that LeBron's not one of the greatest of all time. Of course he is. But for my money, the greatest player in the history of basketball is Michael Jordan. Not even a discussion. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you so much for your time and your opinion, Mr. Castello. I sincerely hope that the 5 returns, this year, next year with, fans in attendance, and I hope it just eclipses all the expectations which you have for it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, we planted a flag. We got a really great response. So now it's in our best interest to move it forward with some of these other rivalries we spoke about, Lakers, Celtics, and whatnot. But thank you for, having me and talking about it. And I hope people keep an eye out for us in the future.
Definitely. Thank you, Mr. Castello. It was great to be talking to you.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day, sir. Bye.